Public and baffled police. 13 women, all strangled, some sexually assaulted, found dead in their own homes with no signs of forced entry. Newspapers called him the Boston Strangler. This is a story of crime, confession, controversy, and the quest for justice in one of America's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Back in 1962, women in Boston were terrified of answering their door. When the Boston police started to find women strangled in their own homes, a new turn in criminal history was born. All 13 women died, assaulted, and strangled before there was a son of Sam or Ted Bundy that was a Boston Strangler, and this is his story. Let's get started. Even though the series of murders of 13 innocent women are based in Boston, the story starts in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Rumor had it that a serial harasser was on the loose and he had all the tricks up his sleeve to enter your house. Women in the area would tell a story of a charming, handsome man with a smooth flirting game. But that's just not it. The same man was a scout for a talent agency, and every woman he saw was the most beautiful person he had laid his eyes on and true to his talent. The ruse worked all the time. In 1960, this man had inappropriately touched uncountable women, whispers in the city dubbed him the Measuring Man. Later on, this man will be known to be Albert DeSalvo, a villain in every right. Ever heard of how the most depraved men are the ones we interact with daily? They don't look evil or wicked. They look normal. And that's what DeSalvo's entire brand was. What no one knew about. His dark past is perhaps the most twisted story ever. His dad was known to physically abuse his wife and bring prostitutes home. At a young age, DeSalvo developed a habit of torturing and burning animals. He'd later become a red flag in the criminal system, but his first major arrest came as a measuring man and everything went downhill from there. Prison systems are supposed to reform the culprits, but DeSalvo was known to beat the system. After his initial 18-month sentence, he was released on the basis of good behavior. Now, that may sound like a stretch, but we're talking about a master manipulator here. If he had the guts to make women believe his scouting talents, he had some guts, right? That's when DeSalvo escalated the nature of his crimes. His transformation from the Measuring Man to Green Man holds the stories of all the women who were abused upon his release. Albert used a series of ES to make his way into women's homes, delivery guy, electrician, postman, and sometimes just himself, no matter what the technique was. DeSalvo became a horror for women in many cities. His crimes quickly turned into a predictable pattern, yet his trail went undetected because his hunting ground was never the same. Soon enough, women from Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire would report a man dressed in green who had molested them. No matter what DeSalvo's ruse was or what city he was in, he'd always wear something green while committing some heinous crimes. No one knows what his obsession with green clothes was. But as far as criminal analysis goes, serial criminals always like to leave a mark or find their signature. DeSalvo found his signature in the color green. The same signature became the tipping point in the Green Man's case in October 1964, but not without some grueling escalation. And that's when the story of the Boston Strangler finds its place in newspapers, the streets, and the worst nightmares of women in the city. Before we proceed, the following narration of events contained disturbing themes like abuse and murder. While the police were looking for the Green Man in New England, women in Boston were gripped with a fear of their own. After all, the Boston Strangler was on the loose. On June 14, 1962, the Boston police found the body of 56-year-old Anna Ilsa. She was strangled in her bathrobe after getting molested. The intensity of the crime was new for the town, but back then it was a standalone event until the law enforcement agencies found the body of 68-year-old Nina Francis Hook. So far, like this video and subscribe to our channel for some mind-gripping true crime stories. Now let's go back to the crimes of the Boston Strangler. Like Anna, Nina Francis was also molested with an object and strangled in her nylon stockings. That was when it became crystal clear. 2 was a pattern. The similar nature of murders alarmed the police. It's not a daily occurrence that you'll find a serial killer on your tail when you do. Everyone is a suspect and every woman is a victim. Not to mention elements like nylon stockings and bathrobes were very important. The Strangler wasn't just any ordinary murderer. He was living some fantasies with his victims, and that made him dangerous. You wouldn't be shocked to know that the media had a field day with this news after the first few murders. New shocking details made the rounds in the media, and this was enough to make every woman in the town as hysterical. The work of the Boston Strangler wasn't just about murders and abuse. It was about making a show out of his victims. Turns out he was also displaying his victims like they were in some adult movie. The disturbing detail caused women to leave Boston while some stalked on Tigas or got deadbolts for their doors. Boston found 13 of their women dead and strangled, but then the murder stopped. And the reason perhaps is something that you all saw coming. On October 27th, one of the unnamed Green Man's victims reported that a detective had molested her. Initial investigation revealed that the police had never gone to her house for any questions. After the woman described the physical appearance of her attacker, all of the fingers pointed toward our classic villain, Albert DeSalvo. That's when the world got to know that he had broken into 400 homes and abused 300 women. But wait, sure, the Boston murder stopped, but the culprit was never arrested. That's when the case of DeSalvo gets twisted out of his own free. Will he confess to committing the Boston murders? Nope. The story doesn't end here. If anything, the plot thickens in captivity. DeSalvo had befriended George Nassau, a fellow murderer. Interestingly, the Boston murders had also started when Nassau was out on his first parole. He also had a knack for going after women. So there was a lot of material for the police to investigate if he was a Boston Strangler. Yet all doubts went down the drain when DeSalvo admitted to George about all the women he had killed in Boston. Sounds like straightforward best friend bonding, right? Wrong. One theory suggests that both of the criminals had planned to split the reward money if one of them took the blame. All right, we don't know the logistics of this agreement. This isn't a far-fetched theory. The police then started to question DeSalvo as Nassau, his attorney, made the groundbreaking announcement. For the most part, the Green Man knew the most private details about the Boston victims, what their apartments looked like, what they were wearing, and what object were used in murdering the women. Sound conclusive to us, but remember, everyone is a suspect even when they're confessing. Police were conflicted because an earlier theory of having more than one murderers on the loose made a lot of sense. Strangler victims had nothing in common. The age range was big, race wasn't the same, and even the methodology of murders differed. Plus, police couldn't find any physical evidence that tied DeSalvo to the murders, but all of that didn't matter. DeSalvo knew the details that no one should have known. He even corrected one of the victims' accounts when he pointed out that the color of her chair was green and not brown. In 1967, he was sentenced to life in prison. It seems like the Boston Strangler chapter was over. But for men like DeSalvo, nothing ever really ends. So when the news of his escape broke out, women didn't sleep that night. The wild manhunt that followed was insane. The next day, he gave himself up to the police only to get stabbed to death in Walpole Prison. 7 years later, nobody knows why and who caused the murder of the Boston Strangler, only that justice was served. You would be surprised to know that even though he was known to terrorize Boston, he isn't the official Boston Strangler. He's perhaps one of them. So far, his DNA has been tied to one victim. Marion Sullivan was 19 when she was abused and strangled with her nylon stockings. In 2013, her story found a conclusion when police declared Albert DeSalvo as a murderer. The rest of the 12 victims of Boston Strangler exist in the unsolved pile of the Boston police. If all the theories about the Strangler are going to keep you up at night, join the club, like this video.